Well, everybody, welcome back to the infirmary. This week we are talking to Josh Monda, somebody I have known for like almost 20 years. Josh came into triathlon in 2006. There's some excellent pictures of him in his first marathon on his Instagram page, which you should really go see. And very quickly after that start, became like one of the fast fixtures in the Pacific Northwest amateur racing scene. In 2023, Josh took second place in his age group at the 70.3 World Championships, and then you turned pro in advance of the 2024 season. You posted your Ironman PR, I believe, in your very first pro race at Ironman Florida in 2024, a blistering 8:23:57. And he races for the On Your Left professional triathlon team, a triathlon and comedy podcasting site, which is a wonderful double up. He is also your 2025 Columbia River Triathlon champion, a local race he won just this past weekend. He lives in Vancouver, Washington, everybody. Yes, that is something that exists. With his wife and kids, where he runs the company that he started in 2009. Josh, welcome to the infirmary. I hope we can help.
Hey, thank you for that introduction, Chris.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to have you. The first question I got for you, so when I started, I got my pro card way too fast. Like I started in 2003, I got my pro card in 2006, and then proceeded to get my ass handed to me for like 4 years. You spent 17 years racing amateur before you turned pro in your early 40s. That is a super long incubation period. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey, that 17-year process, and what changed for you that made racing professionally finally possible?
Yeah, great question. Where to start? I guess all the way in the
Yeah, it's a big
beginning with
one.
the
Tell me
shirtless,
everything.
the shirtless marathon photo at the Portland Marathon in 2005. I basically was doing my first marathon ever, and I had decided, I think a month out, that I didn't have a running background growing up.
Mhm,
I had only done some boxing as a teenager, and that's where I learned how to kind of jog around the neighborhood.
mhm,
Um, and so I decided to but I love the running piece of boxing. So as I got older, I decided to keep running recreationally. Did my first marathon, which is the Portland Marathon, wanted to qualify for Boston, and I missed it on my first attempt
mhm.
by like 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And I did the classic thing where I like went out and ran the first 13 miles and at like 2:55 pace, and I only needed to run a 3:10
Mhm,
to qualify for Boston. But anyways, after I failed, but did finish the marathon, I hired my first running coach, which was locals might recognize the name Mark Kendall.
mhm,
And he coached me to my first Boston Marathon, but he was also a triathlon coach. So he got me started. And I fell in love with triathlon like immediately. I just loved, for me, I didn't grow up swimming, but I was strong at cycling and really good at running. And I just loved just the thrill of running people down on the third
mhm,
leg of a triathlon. So that's kind of what fueled me in the back in the aughts when I first started.
mhm,
And yeah, I guess the main thing with me and the reason I stuck with age group so long is because I just started a business in 2009, and I just really didn't have the time to dedicate towards putting in any more than like 12 or 14 hours a week of training.
mhm,
So I was very driven. I always wanted to win. That's all I thought about when I was training, was like, who am I going to beat in the next race, or how can I win this race, or who's my
mhm,
competition? So I was a fierce competitor, but I just didn't have the time to
mhm,
dedicate. Or maybe I didn't realize like that I could find that time within my
mhm,
life, which is what I would find later on in my late 30s.
mhm,
Um, in 2012, we had our first kid, and in 2014, we had our second, and life just kind of got really busy at that
mhm,
point. And through a lot of family stuff and personal stuff, I took some time away from triathlon in like the mid like 2014 to 2019,
Mhm.
and came back in 2019 and did a couple of races. I actually did the Columbia River Triathlon, and it was my second triathlon back in 2019. And
Nice.
I think I was 15 minutes slower that day than I was this past Saturday.
Mhm.
Um, and but I fell in love with triathlon again in 2019 and was very motivated to like take the next step up the next year. And then, what happened? COVID hits the
Yeah.
next
Yeah,
year.
totally.
And, but I was so motivated, and, you know, I still had the same career I was working in.
Mhm.
But things changed at work and I was home all the time. And so I
Wow.
found a lot more time to train. And so I just trained my butt off like all of 2020.
Mhm.
And then in 2021, I started training with a local professional triathlete, 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗔𝗪𝗦.
Mhm.
And he was the one that started planting the seed in my head that, like, hey, Josh, you're good enough to race in the professional field. You don't have to
Mhm.
just continue to race in age group. Like, you're not just, it's not just that I'm suggesting it. He was insisting, like, you got to race with me. So he kept insisting that I race with him in the pro field, and it took some convincing. It took a couple years, but eventually in 2023, I decided to finally make the jump.
Mhm. Those 5 years that you took off, like, what was that like? Like, was that first yeah, tell me all about it. Was part of it a relief? Was part of it nice to be away? Had you burned out? Or had you just run out of time? Like, what tell me a little bit about the time away because I think so many endurance athletes are just terrified to step away from the sport because there's this whole sense of like I'm going to lose everything that I've already built and everything like that. So, like, how did you even come up with kind of the chutzpah to it's a very brave thing to like stop doing this thing that you'd been doing for almost 10 years at that point. Like what tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Well, I mean, for us, it was really just necessity. I mean, we had two kids.
Mhm.
When our second son, Max, was born, that meant we had two kids in diapers in the
Mhm.
household. And our first son, Mason, he was not an easy infant.
Mhm.
It took a toll on us. So we were kind of expecting the same with Max. He ended up being a very easy, the second child was like very easy on us, and
Mhm.
he slept through the night from day one. Um, but I really just kind of felt that kind of provider. Like I just felt like I needed to focus on work and my career and providing for the
Mhm.
family, because Ashley was staying home
Mhm.
full time at that point and she wasn't working. And so I mean, I guess it was, yeah. So there's a couple sides of it because on one side it was a relief to not have to like continue going through the grind of like training every day. On another side, like I kind of grew up from a rough background. I was exposed to like a lot of stuff as a kid, and so something that a lot of our listeners may not know, but I come from an addiction background,
Mhm.
and so I did have some stuff as a kid that I didn't continue to work on as a young adult, and
Mhm. Yeah.
I think triathlon kind of kept me in balance. It kept me from like going out and partying too much and stuff.
Mhm.
And so when all of a sudden endurance sports and training was gone, I started to kind of get pulled back into that other direction when I still had free time. So I did battle some addiction through like prescription painkillers
Mhm.
for a couple years, and so I had to get through that. So that was, I think, the probably the hardest part for me.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Like I wasn't going to like blow up your anonymity on this particular podcast. And yeah, I mean, something you and I share, right? Like, I think I was lucky that I quit when I was still racing because I think I would have really struggled in that particular context of like, now I don't have this outlet, like this thing that keeps me like focused and organized and tired. Like it is
Hmm.
it's hard to go out when you're training, 15, 16, 17 hours a week and more. Like you just don't have the energy for it. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're coming up on probably like 5, 6, 7 years at the moment, right?
Yeah, it'll be 6 years on January 6th.
Nice, man. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is freaking awesome. And yeah, and out there in the rest of the world, if anybody is struggling with this stuff, like we get it. It happens in the endurance. There's a lot of it in the endurance world, So like if you do struggle with it out there, you aren't alone, and there's a lot of resources out there to help. But my next question is about running. So like you've always been a good runner, like you said. Hilariously, you and I have the same exact marathon debut and the same exact story. I also ran a 3:11 and missed qualifying 5 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Same
had no
thing.
idea.
Yeah. The one and only DC Marathon 2002.
Oh, wow.
There's
Okay.
1 year that they did it, and then I think the Marine Corps Marathon got a little grumpy, and like it just, I don't know, there's something, they never repeated it, but same thing. Went through the first half, and like, you know 127, and then like barely clung on to a 3:11 finish, and yeah, didn't qualify that year. But you've always been a good runner, but your running has really changed in the last 3 or 4 years, the last 5 or 6 years. You're now routinely running, when I look at your 70.3 splits, in that kind of like 115 and change range, which is, effing fast, especially for those of us that are past 40. Um, Tell me a little bit about like your running background, your running approach, and like what has changed in the last 5 or 6 years around your running that's allowed you to make that big jump. I think a lot of amateur triathletes, they're always looking at the run because they know, swim and bike for show, run for dough. Like they know
Yeah.
that cliche, and it's true. um so what did you do? Like how have you built and continued to build that speed past 40?
Yeah. So that's been like the dream come true for me. Like, it's really, I mean, besides this being able to swim really well, like
Hmm.
last Saturday, which was my latest dream come true, the running has just been like, it was something for many years, I always was like, I know I can run under 120 in a
Hmm.
70.3. And for whatever reason, I just could never do it. Um, and then once I did finally do it, and I think 2022, I pretty much, there's only one other race that I haven't broken 120 in a 70.3 in the half marathon. Um, I'd say the biggest change has just been the approach to my training.
Hmm.
What what I used to do when I was self coaching, and I should preface that, since 2023, or actually late 2022, I've been coached by Elliot Bassett, who he used to coach Ben Hoffman,
Hmm. Oh,
and
he has a laundry list of the greats,
yeah,
like Lieto's on there, Erica Ackerland is on there. He worked with 𝗬𝗓. He did some work with Lindsay, Jen Lubke. Like if you, a lot of
Big
great.
Sexy. I think
Yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah,
coached
yeah.
Big Sexy for a
BS
while.
was in there, and like Elliot has touched most of the really great like domestic triathletes, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Yeah, yeah, he's just been man. He's been the best thing for me, and I can't thank him enough. Um, what I was doing on my own when I was self coaching before I connected with Elliot is I was still kind of doing this model where I would train like really hard for 2 weeks, and then I
Hmm.
would take 1 week, like I would have to take a week off,
Oh,
like just like really like ramp it down to like,
yeah,
I would train for like 18 hours a week and then
yeah.
take it down to like 10 hours. So it was like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and I was just constantly just kind of going up and down.
Hmm.
Um, when I connected with Elliot, what I found is that, oh, I'm doing a lot more easy running and a lot more easy biking and a lot more easy swimming. I'm not doing like all these hard workouts that I was just trying to like just cram in all the time.
Yeah.
But I started pulling off these blocks of like, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks of just continuous training where I'm just doing anywhere from 20 to like 24 hours a week of training. And for somebody else, that could be, maybe that number is like 16 to 18, but whatever is like a good training number for you, like not having to like back it off every other
Hmm.
week or every 2 weeks. So I think that helped. What I also through all that, what I also did is from doing all my big rides, he was encouraging me to, on my big bike rides, to do race day fueling
Hmm.
on my big bike rides. And I would never do that before. I would do it maybe for like an hour of like a
Hmm.
3 to 4 hour ride. But I would always go like the first hour, I would take nothing in.
Uh-huh.
And then the second hour, I maybe would take a couple, a couple hundred calories. But yeah, I just started doing that on all my big rides. And I think it just really like becoming like very like fine tuned and like how I feel
Hmm.
and just having it become second nature and just knowing exactly like what my body needs at any given time through, hundreds of hours of training.
Hmm.
That really started to help me once I got onto the run off of the
Hmm.
bike. So I think that was a big piece. And then the other part is that I always do 5 runs every week,
Hmm.
like no less, no more.
Yeah.
And it's usually like 3 easy runs, one workout, and like one long run. And usually that long run is kind of like a workout, has some intervals in it.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't do like 6 to 7 days a week of running. So I give my run legs some time to rest a little. And I do the same with biking and swimming too. I do 5 swims, 5 bikes, 5 runs every week, like clockwork.
Yeah.
And I think that consistency has really helped me too.
Yeah, it's so wild, right? Like, I mean, what you've basically described is like Arthur Lydiard's like run training program from the 1960s. It's like, and it's just like, and that's why I think like, Elliot is obviously doing, really good stuff is that, and so many triathletes do too much hard work. And, it's changing, I think. I think the message is getting through. Because we're seeing things like in the Tour de France, like especially the same idea of like lots and lots of like very low intensity volume, two
Hmm.
workouts a week, two like interval sessions a week, and then a lot of a lot of other stuff. And then like what you touched on, the fueling is just completely changed. Especially in professional cycling, professional triathlon. Blumenfeld is getting in 200 grams of carbohydrates an hour. That's a lot. It's 800 calories per hour. But I would
As long as he
imagine
doesn't puke it, as long as he doesn't puke it back out. But
it's true. He has a good story about where that puking came from. And Lieto asked him about that and was like, "Well, what do you think? 200 grams of carbohydrate?" And he was like, there's something else going on." But but it's true. Like, and those guys, that's sort of their whole thing is like, let's push the envelope and see where we end up. But like, yeah, I mean, that thing that you said about kind of backing off and it like, do you just feel better when you made that change, did you just feel better across the board? Like a little less of that completely trashed feeling of having to take a week off after 2 weeks?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when it's time to go like hard and like really push it in a workout, I not only have like the strength or I don't have not only have it in my legs to get the work in, but I have it like mentally and emotionally to like really like hit a workout hard and get a good effort in. And then that's the same on race day as well. So it's when I run like a 116 half, it's not like easy. I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm floating on clouds out there, just clipping along at a,
Hmm.
5:45 pace. Like I'm really digging in and pushing myself and going to the well. But I wasn't able to do that before. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fatigue is the ultimate watt blocker, right? And like, yes, we're not talking about the bike, we're talking about running, but like, it's funny, like clearly you've uncovered another level actually by training less hard, which allows you to really go hard on race day. And like that's something I think a lot of athletes don't understand is that training sets the possibility. It sets the range of what you're able to do.
Yeah.
And then on race day, yeah, you still have to go out and do the hard work of making it occur. But if you're not exhausted, that ability is there for you now.
Yep. Absolutely agree.
It's great that you make that realization as you're transitioning from amateur to professional racing because they are very different, kettles of fish. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like that change from racing as an amateur to racing professionally? Like, could you talk about what that contrast has been like for you? Like, what are the differences that you've noticed, and how have you had to adjust your game to deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I think a lot of people know this, but for one, it's just the bike, the dynamics on the bike. Whereas in an age group race, I would, try to lock in once my legs got under me. When I got out of the swim, I would try to lock in at a certain goal wattage and try to hold that most of the day. In the professional field, there's a lot of surging.
Hmm.
And I think the first 70.3 I did in the pro field was Oceanside in 2024.
Hmm.
And goal, my best watts in a 70.3 up to that point in the age group was, I think, 278
Hmm.
average. In the first 20 minutes of that race at Oceanside last year, I had to push like 330 watts for the first 20 minutes, like
Yeah.
just to bridge up to a group. And because I saw a group of guys up there and I knew that if I didn't get up to them,
Hmm.
then the race was going to be very different for me. So I like burnt as many matches I needed to catch up to them, and I ended up working with them the rest of the race, and eventually things settled down, and I wasn't like pushing 330 watts the whole time. But I still had I think I ended up normalizing 288 watts for that race.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that on the bike, and then there's also in the swim, and this has been the really challenging part for me is like just the pressure
Hmm.
in the swim to make a pack, make a swim pack.
Yeah.
And usually that means like not just like going in like three athletes at a time, crossing the timing mat and getting to just kind of settle into your groove.
Hmm.
You got to start with 50 other 25 to 30-year-old professional studs and sit in the washing machine and try to hang on and get off to a good swim start. And so that's been really, really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is, it's much, this is something that I see a lot of, and I see this. I saw this recently that somebody else posted something like age groupers pace and professionals race, and it really pisses me off because I don't think that's actually true. Like, you clearly had the capacity to put in that 330-watt like chunk, right? Like, you didn't manufacture that out of thin air on race day because you were like, "Oh, I'm racing." Right? Like, your training had like set you up for that. Am I incorrect?
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, that's the part I hadn't mentioned yet was that the training leading into it was instead of doing a lot of training at like 70.3 pace,
Hmm.
for a 70.3, I'll do a lot of like 20K
Yeah.
time trial pace efforts or a lot of 40K time trial pace efforts and intervals just to prepare for a 70.3. So I have the matches to burn at that higher wattage.
Yeah.
So that's the training leading up to it's a big difference, a huge difference too.
Yeah, like fatigue resistance at all intensities becomes the key thing. It's like, I think a lot of, because they just don't have enough time, and this is probably your experience too, that when you're training 12 to 15 hours a week, you can't develop fatigue resistance at, your 1 minute power, 5 minute, 15, 20, 60, 120. Like, you can't, there's just not enough time to build that fatigue resistance. So I think a lot of age groupers are like, okay, the fatigue resistance I'm going to work on is my steady 85 to 90% of FTP power for my 70.3 bike split. But professional triathletes, I think, are training a lot more like cyclists now, where it's like, no, you
Hmm.
have to be able to deal, like, you have to have good fatigue resistance across the whole spectrum. And like, so I feel like professionals still pace, you're still pacing it. Like, you didn't ride like a crazy person. You did what you needed to do to get into the place where you were still able to pace yourself effectively. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. And I was curious, Chris, like how was that for you when you were racing professional? Like, and do you think has it changed? Because I feel like
Oh my God,
obviously
yes.
bike
Yeah.
times are different these days, but
Mhm.
the dynamics are probably different too, but maybe not completely different. Like what?
No, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I am so lucky that I got to race during the era that I got to race because like the sport really hadn't professionalized yet, and like now it has. Like people are really taking racing and training seriously in a way that few less of us did in that particular era because like you could assemble a pretty good career off of a bunch of like 350 to 4 hour 70.3s, and if you could run mid 250s in an Ironman, like you're gonna have a good crack at it, like. But that has changed, and like my old run of the mill, like 52, 53 minute swim, 4:35 to 4:45 bike, and like 3 hour marathon. Like I'm a pretty good amateur now. That's what that gets you. And it was a much more kind of steady kind of experience. Like, you
Mm.
really would like the swim was still the same. The swim was still the washing machine, a real case of natural selection, I will never get back the 10 minutes of Lake Stevens when I somehow am in the front group for the first 800 meters with, like Crowy and Luke and like really, really good athletes, and being like, I think I'm going to die. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die in a few minutes. And, and like, I was an okay open water swimmer, like I got lucky a few times, mostly due to realizing that it's very, not much of it is up to you. It's a
Mm.
question of what unfolds in the first 3 or 400 meters, and if you have sort of read the group and put yourself in the right starting position, and then it's a roll of the dice. And it's just like some days you get lucky and some days you put yourself in the right spot and it's pretty easy, and you're in that group and you're swimming along and it's fine. And some days it's, death. But no, I did not have to train the way that you're having to train in terms of dealing with that different kinds of fatigue resistance, because I think triathlon and cycling are sort of growing up together, for different reasons. Cycling is sort of like putting its recent doping past behind it, though, there's still a lot of questions. But I
Mm.
do think a lot of the changes that we're seeing in the speeds at the tour are due to better training and certainly better nutrition. Like those guys aren't eating musettes full of croissants anymore. They're eating real food over they're eating training food. So it was different for me, and I was able to live a little bit more of that, like get on the bike, find the group, um, and ride like a pretty consistent day. And I think it's good what's happened. I mean, 70.3 racing resembles Olympic distance racing much more so than it
Oh
did
yeah.
when I was racing. And Ironman's moving in that direction. It's a very dynamic thing now. So it's been a big change, and I am happy that I am not having to deal with what you're dealing with. Um, so you've already touched on working with Elliot, and a little bit about like what his coaching, what works so well for you. I didn't know that you also worked with a swim coach. I'm curious about that. Like, and maybe what you could talk about is what is that relationship like between your two coaches? How do they work together to manage your training load?
Yeah, like, well, Elliot, I'm really thankful for Elliot that he's allowed me to work with like a couple swim coaches in the past. Tim Floyd was another one who I've gone and seen at a swim camp that he
Mhm.
holds for struggling pro swimmer
Uh-huh.
triathletes every January. But it's a great time, and he's very generous with his time, and he's one of the great people of the sport that I really appreciate and respect. So I've had Tim Floyd, who I've gotten a lot of help from, and Elliot's kind of given up a little bit of his role on the swim and allowed me to work with Greg Harper, which I think it helps because uh, my training partner Evan Price also gets coached in the swim by Greg Harper, so
Nice.
he gives us a lot of the swims to do together. So we kind of do a lot of our swim work. together. And I'd say the biggest change since I started working with Greg is that it's really been less focus on trying to make like these send offs and do these big interval workouts.
Mhm.
And he's more just getting us used to getting in the water and like feeling what it feels like to swim correctly with good technique and good body position. And whether that takes some drills to get us into that frame of mind, or whether that means just like sitting in there and like floating in a ball
Mhm.
and doing the ball to X float drills. He really just tries to get us in the right headspace so that um, we're focusing on swimming well and not just trying to get through the workout and just trying to work hard. So that's been the biggest thing. It's been a lot of uh, short intervals, a lot of 25s, 50s, and 75s.
Mhm.
And it's been a lot of drills, and it's been a lot of like just like low pressure inner like sets where it's like, oh, 10 to 15 seconds rest. But not like, oh, you got to do like 5 by 200 meters on 3 minutes or
Mhm.
on 255 and do that three rounds throw or whatever. So that's been nice.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's so funny. I hear so many people talk about like eschewing technique work, and I'm like, technique opens the door to speed. It's the thing that really like makes it possible. And I feel like so many triathletes try to swim the way that they see like high school swimmers swimming, which is exactly what you just described. Like 5 by 200, fast pace, tight send off, repeat it 3 times. And so you end up doing like a threshold workout every time you're in the pool.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you talk to that high school swimmer, like 15 by 200 on a 250 send off is their Z1 Z2 pace. It's aerobic. And like the reason high school swimmers and college swimmers break things up into intervals is because they're swimming 10 kilometers a day. And it's
Yep.
like, and it's a boredom thing. But I think a lot of triathletes look at that and they're like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be swimming. But that's kind of exactly back to that 18 hours a week for 2 weeks and then having to take a week off that you were describing, where it's like, no, you probably were super tired all the time. And this different approach where it's like, no, let's think about getting you comfortable in the water, whatever that looks like or whatever that takes. And then the speed will come once you're a little bit more native in the water. Does that feel like that's correct?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the speed did come, and yeah, it's been interesting that I eventually just let go of like wanting to always feel like I was having to do these like hard
Mhm.
workouts, like to reassure myself that, oh, I'm fast enough to swim X pace on race day. I just let go of all that, and I was like, all right, I need to figure out how to just like swim correctly and have good technique and propel myself through water and push water straight back and fix any little flaws that I needed to work on. So I always have like a couple cues in my head that I'm working on at any given time.
Ooh, what are some of
um,
those?
uh, well, some of it is the I have an issue where I don't rotate enough. This is the classic where I breathe to my left,
Hmm.
and so therefore I don't rotate enough on my right.
Hmm.
And so I'm always thinking about like getting good rotation on the other side, and sometimes that means like every maybe like 2 breaths per 100 I'll switch and breathe right
Hmm.
just real quick, just to get a couple, just to reset a little bit and breathe to my right, and it helps me like rotate. It forces me to rotate more to my right.
Hmm.
So I got that, and there's also just my head position. When I'm breathing in the past, I've turned my head like I try to like yank my head like really far out of the water to get a breath, and like both eyes are out of the water, and my nose is sticking straight up, and I'm like I'm like twerking my neck and stuff, and so now I'm just very relaxed, and I just have my goggles like right at the water line. One goggle's under the water, one goggle's right above the water, and it's just a very relaxed feeling.
Mhm. Did you struggle when you made that change? Did you struggle with swallowing water when you began trying to get down from swim coaches call it checking the weather? When you're swimmers, you can see both goggles and they're kind of like craned up looking at the sky to what's correct, which is looking out over the surface of the water right next to you. A lot of athletes that I work with say, "Hey, I'm taking in a lot of water now." Did you experience that? And if you did, how did you handle it?
Yeah, I did experience it. I think where first noticed it is Greg had us do the drill he calls the paddle cap drill, where we put just a flat paddle on the crown of our head and we swim and we turn to breathe and we try to keep that paddle on the crown of our head while we're turning to breathe. And I did pretty good with it breathing to my left, but I noticed every time I breathed to my right, I would just swallow so much water.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was, I did it enough to where I realized that I had to like, I wasn't just like turning my body to breathe. It was like when I was turning, I was also making sure I was continuously like pressing my head forward
Hmm.
in the water and like pushing forward and something about that like it it just made the whole breathing process different for me and I eventually I just did it enough to where I just wasn't I kind of naturally just figured out how to not swallow water by turning my head.
I would guess, like whenever a body of water moves, whenever a body moves through water, like if you look at a boat, like right at the bow, there's that little pile of water that piles up right at the front. And then if
Yeah.
you look right behind the bow, there's that like water line where you can actually see a little farther down on the hull. There's like a little depression in the water. I bet when you're breathing to your left, because it's normal and familiar, you make the bow wave like really normally, and there's this nice little pocket to your left to breathe into. But I'm guessing because like you weren't rotating properly to the right, you were probably lifting your head, your propulsion was stopping, that depression wasn't forming on the right side. And so, and I see this all the time. People are like, when I try to get people to breathe to both sides, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna swallow a lot of water." And I'm like, isn't that a reason to work on it? like,
Yeah.
like, why are we just abandoning the process of perhaps getting better because it's uncomfortable? And I get it, like swallowing water is a different kind of discomfort than like this was a hard bike workout. You're like, no, this is something that can kill you. You can drown in water. So I understand
Mm.
the anxiety. But that's kind of that's sort of what I guess was probably what was going on for you, especially because you're talking about maintaining that pressure on the paddle because
Hmm.
the bow wave disappears when you stop moving forward. And so many swimmers, when they breathe to their bad side, they actually like come to a stop. You like see
Yeah.
them not make forward propulsion because the only thing they're thinking about is breathing in this uncomfortable way.
Yep. Yep, I agree. I think that's it. Yep.
Um, this might be what we just talked about, but what part of your game? So let me adjust this because my question was, what part of your game needs the most work? And I'm guessing that that's the swim. That's what you're working on. But instead of talking about the swim some more, you brought up emotional sort of balance in both your training and your racing, and that's gonna. I always break that into like there's sort of mental and emotional. Could you talk a little bit about like your mental game, like what you think about when you're training and racing? And then if you could go a little into that emotional side of it, like what is your emotional experience during racing like?
Oh yeah, I am like I'm like you that's a great question. I am like not a very emotional person, I feel like just regular life.
Mhm.
I kind of keep stuff pretty close to the chest and I'm a man of few words, I guess I would say. But I guess that means that I really when it comes to like racing and training, that's kind of my outlet. And um yeah, I don't like I I think about okay, so in training I think about a lot of stuff, like, but a
Uh-huh.
lot of it is like I'm visualizing. It's like race situation visualizing. That's usually what's going on in my head.
Mhm.
Um, and, and then sometimes it's like, oh, am I going to hit this number? Am I going to
Yeah.
continue to average 300 watts for this interval? And if I start to not do it, it's like, oh, how can I get this back? And
Mhm.
so I do have a little bit of that too. but I think the hardest part is that, let's see, I think the hardest part has been that as I've gotten older, I have two kids and they're getting involved into sports. And as I am a father to them and I help coach and do stuff, I realize that I'm spending a lot of my emotional and like mental energy, like helping them out.
Mhm.
And so then when it comes to like training, I don't have as much of that. And so that's been a big challenge for me is like kind of how to divvy up the emotional investment between my kids and my own training. And all right, I'm getting old, so is there a certain point where I got to start just letting go of it
Mhm.
on my side and investing everything into my kids?
Mhm.
So I have that. When it comes to racing, um, do you remember Chris Ramsey?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that
So
guy.
Chris, years ago when I was training for my first Ironman in 2010, he sent me like a little thing that he wrote up about his approach to Ironman racing,
Mhm.
and he always described it as like with Ironman racing, and a lot of this was for relates to age group racing, maybe more than professional racing these days. Although I think a
Mhm.
lot of it still applies to professional racing. But he said that um, in Ironman racing, you always got to try to stay in that zone like all day long, and it's a matter of like not getting overexcited and not getting undermotivated
Mhm.
and or too discouraged during a race. And if you could find a way to stay in that zone as long as you can, like all day long, you're going to be successful at Ironman racing.
Mhm.
So that's something I always try to do is like try to stay in the middle, that middle zone, even keel.
Mhm.
And when it comes to like being on the run, if I start to feel like like I'm losing it and I'm starting to
Mhm.
slow down, I try to smile more because that'll kind of help offset that
Mhm.
that demotivation that I'm experiencing. So I smile more, and that kind of helps things a little bit now that I'm smiling,
Mhm.
and I start to run with good form. So I know like, all right, if I'm slowing down to 730 miles and I want to run 650s, um, I could hunch forward and lean forward and start to like let my core go soft. And I'm probably going to keep slowing down more and more. But if I just run with good form, even if I'm running slower than I plan to, I'm still going to run a lot faster than if I just let my form go to crap. And then usually what I would find is that after like 10 or 15 minutes, I would start to kind of come out of that dark patch, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'd start feeling good again, and my legs would be there, and next thing you know, I'm back to running like 655s or 7 minute miles. So that's kind of just a little bit of like the what goes on with me on the emotions and the mindset.
I love that. You're essentially talking about energy management. It's like, how can we stay. The person I got it from was 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗔𝗪𝗦 at QT2, and he talks about it as the arousal scale, and then it's like he's like, okay, yes, everybody like chuckle chuckle, but like where one is like I'm so demotivated I could go back to sleep, and five is like I'm so anxious I'm gonna throw up, and that like he's always been like three, maybe 3.5, if you can find that. And I was going to ask you like what are your tactics, but you just gave me two of them, and that's really good. Like what are the ways, like as you're getting, it's interesting, the two that you gave me are ones where you're sliding down towards the bottom of the
Hmm.
scale. Have you ever had to bring yourself back from being too anxious during the race?
Yeah, a couple times I think in um, like 70.3 racing, if I get off the bike and I'm feeling like I can run like you know
110.
yeah, 110,
Yeah.
112 pace.
Yeah.
And I just have to be like very like honest with myself. Like, no, Josh, like the odds of you doing like eh, my favorite thing about endurance sports is there are no miracles.
Yeah.
And so like I know that I've not shown in training that I'm at the level to run 110 pace. Maybe someday I could,
Mhm.
but that's not going to be today. And my goal was to run 4 minutes slower than that, which would still be a huge day. So I got to
Yeah.
so I just have to be honest with myself and like put myself in check, and also go, I would rather run my last 3 miles faster than planned than run my first 3 miles faster than planned. So that's usually what I do is I remind myself, save it for the last 3 miles. And that's where you can like just lay it all out there.
Nice. I love that. That's so three great tactics, you know. And what's cool is you're talking about three very different things. Like the smiling is a physical way to like generate an emotion, you know, and like people miss out on this. Like emotions are simply chemical reactions that course through your body. And then we apply stories to them.
Yeah.
But like you can force it, you know, by doing exactly what you're doing. And then, you know, the next one is a very like a much more mechanical approach. Like, okay, let's run with good form. And like you said, you usually end up weathering that rough patch, which might be a calorie thing, which might be a hydration thing or whatnot. But, you know, our energy does come in sort of waves during races. And when things are starting to feel bad, it's easy to think that you are on an inevitable decline to blowing up. But like if you focus on because what you're doing, what's happening in your brain is you're giving your brain a very specific thing to work on other than this sucks and I'm slowing down, you
Yeah.
know. And then the final one, you know, is a very like, you know, is a more affirmative affirmation, like I'm going to do the thing that I have trained for, you know. So like all three of your approaches kind of touch a, like an emotional, intellectual, and mechanical kind of approach, which, you know, I don't know how you've arrived at that, but that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. No, I think it's just just years and years of training, and then, following other fellow professional triathletes and age group athletes. And yeah, that's the great thing about just sticking around the sport for so long.
That's true. It is a great place, you know, but my final question is about how do we change that place? uh if there were a way for you to change one part of the triathlon and endurance culture, what would you change?
One part of the current triathlon and endurance culture.
Yeah, like is there something that like really bugs you or you feel like, you know, I feel like the sport would be a like healthier, happier, better place if we were to change X. And it could be anything.
That's a good question. Um, oh man, I gotta think about that for a second, because I love so much about the sport,
Hmm.
so much about it. I think maybe it would be a little bit better place right now, because I see this a lot on the very competitive end of things, is that a lot of like the younger, uh, like up and coming elite amateur or pro triathletes. There's just and we didn't have this when we were younger, where everybody just has visibility into everybody else's training. And
Yeah.
so I see a lot of younger kids coming up and just doing like, it's very impressive the amount of training they can do, but a lot of it is they're just they're chasing numbers that they see that other guys are hitting, and it's a lot of times it's more than what they can handle, especially at this early age of their career. So I don't know, maybe yeah, find some way to limit the amount of time people can go on Strava. Like,
Yeah, it's that great shut off
give
social
everybody
media.
like yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
get everybody automatic like a Strava vacation every couple months.
Like every Strava membership also comes with a mandatory screen time app that
Yeah,
is managed by your coach.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love that idea. That's a good one. We'll start working on that. I think it's a great idea, right? Because like that didn't exist when you and I were starting. Like, and I mean, in some ways, like, you just, what you did was whatever number people told you they were averaging for training, you just carve 20% off of it,
Yeah.
so it's like, when somebody tells you they're training 30 hours a week, you're like, okay, 24, like, and that's better because nowadays like you can go and see what some of these like people who are at the height of their physical abilities and are 34 and are completely durable and are managing 35 to 40 hours a week. You throw that at a 21-year-old, you're gonna kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, and I've been guilty of it too, is where like there were periods before I connected with my coach, Elliot, where like I was always trying to hit some number in
Mhm,
training every week because I wanted it to look good on Strava.
mhm.
And so like I would do like a random uh Sunday evening bike workout of like an hour and 36 minutes or, some, or like 41 minutes just so I could hit 14 hours for the week. And it's
Yeah,
like, and nobody cares
yeah.
about that. It's irrelevant. But, to me in my head, I had made it into something. And it was because of what I was trying to come across as on social media. So, yeah, I just think there's like, yeah, there could be a way we could work with the youth and stuff and make it so maybe that's not so important to them.
I think that'd be great. I love that idea. So
Yeah.
um tell us a little bit about On Your Left Triathlon, the people that you race for.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So on your left triathlon, I'm a little bit, I feel like I'm kind of like aged. I'm kind of like the old salty dog of the group. And I just like to, I just kind of go along with them because I am not good at that type of internet humor. But if you want some good entertainment, and you like meme culture, and you like uh, you like someone who is very knowledgeable about the sport and knows how to like make fun of the sport, but in a good way, and have a good time. On your left is the place to follow, and he just basically provides a place for us pros, which we're all the pros who are on the on your left team are
Mhm,
working, like we're triathletes, but we also work full time. We have careers, we have families, and we're just kind of like mid pack racers, just living that mid pack life.
mhm.
And he gives us race kits, gives us what we need to race and get the job done, and we just like support him by sharing his content. And in the meantime,
Nice. That's awesome. What a great, yeah, I mean, like it seems like a good sponsor athlete kind of thing, like a good like everybody's winning. It's like you're probably not getting a huge contract out of it, but you're getting the support that you need and they're getting, the what they need in order to grow what they're doing,
yeah.
which is sort of like, those of you that are out there aspiring professionals, that's kind of like what you can hope for is like a little like trade in kind, especially, until you're at that point where you're commanding, the bigger contracts and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, and it's really cool too because he puts out so much content and he gets so many followers. Like
mhm,
I know guys at like Zoot and stuff now that like
yeah.
I never would have known or on my own unless I like really had worked hard to try to like make those connections on my own. And because I have kids and stuff, I'm at that place where I'm just not pursuing sponsorships like hardcore, like maybe like a full time pro triathlete would be. So yeah, it's just really cool. He's enabled us to make some connections out there, and then none of us are taking ourselves too seriously. We like to laugh at ourselves and make fun of ourselves at the same time. So yeah, it's fun. It's a good balance.
Good. Yeah, I mean that's sort of what you were just talking about what you want to change in the culture is like finding balance in this sometimes OCD, sometimes over the top, sometimes it does take itself a little too seriously. And like that's something I've always tried to do in coaching is be like, let's get back to like A, it's fun, who is the person behind it, like are you being a better person while you are enjoying yourself and getting faster, but like I mean, it's a sport that attracts a very type A kind of person that sometimes might need a reminder that it's fun.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, where else can people find you? Where can people follow your journey? Where can they watch what you're doing? Tell us a little bit about where people can follow you and check out what you're up to.
Yeah, you could just follow me at Instagram, Money Monda, at Money Monda on Instagram. And you can also find me on LinkedIn too, or my company, grindstonecollections.com.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me for an hour about all this stuff.
Nice, man. Well, thanks for having me. I really
Yeah, I really
appreciate it.
appreciate. Yeah, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.